Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Department of Toxic Substances, DTSC, ETAG Technical Advisory Group, ETAG, public hybrid meeting. Our meeting this evening is scheduled from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Note, all meeting materials are available in English and Spanish and are accessible at dtsc.ca.gov/ETAG. Additionally, audio interpretation devices are available for anyone who would like to listen to today's meeting in Spanish. Devices are available to check out near the entrance here. Now, we start the evening thanking the City of Commerce for allowing DTSC to use this space for tonight's meeting. We'd also like to thank the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health for providing resources, information, and referrals to Quest Labs. Resources are through the double doors. Lastly, we'd like to acknowledge the elected officials and government agencies who represent the ETAG community and are our partners on the ETAG Cleanup Project. If you're an elected official or a representative, please raise your hand. Please raise your hand so we can recognize you. Now, we'll recognize any elected officials or representatives online. Please raise your hand online so we can thank you for your attendance.
Rico, we currently have no hands raised online.
Thank you, Valisa. I am Rico Modeste. I serve as a public participation specialist with the Office of Environmental Equity at DTSC. I'll pass it to my colleague to introduce himself.
Thank you, Rico, and good evening, everyone. My name is Pedro Vasquez. I am a public engagement manager for ETAG South with the Office of Environmental Equity at DTSC. Rico and I will be your facilitators this evening. For community members joining us online, welcome, and please note that you should now be able to see tonight's PowerPoint presentation on your screen. Next slide, please. Now, we'd like to go over a few meeting guidelines with you before we get going. By participating in tonight's meeting, you understand that this meeting is being recorded. You may be muted for background noise. If you are participating online, the chat feature will be used for DTSC informational purposes. Please pay close attention to the chat to receive important DTSC information, contact information, and updates. We will allow additional time at the end of the public meeting to obtain the information posted in the chat. We ask that you limit your comments to allow an opportunity for everyone to speak. The ETAG Public Hybrid meeting will focus on sharing updates and fostering a discussion with members of the ETAG project community. We will invite feedback and answer questions on the residential cleanup, ETAG facility, and other activities. You can also contact us at any time with ETAG-related questions by calling our hotline number at 844-225-3887 or email us at exide@dtsc.ca.gov. For those participating virtually or by phone, simultaneous Spanish interpretation is available for this meeting. Click on the globe icon at the bottom of your screen and please select the language. It is important that you select the language, either English or Spanish. If you're calling by phone and would like to Spanish-only audio, please call 877-920-8432 and enter code 741502#. Presentation slides are available in Spanish at dtsc.ca.gov/exide. Automated closed captions have been turned on for this meeting. You can turn them off by clicking the CC icon at the bottom of your screen or moving the captions box. Please note that these captions are provided for convenience only and are not the official transcript of tonight's meeting.
This ETAG public virtual meeting is being presented to you by California's Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, and the Department of Toxic Substances Control, also known as DTSC. Our mission: to protect California's people, communities, and environment from toxic substances, to enhance economic vitality by restoring contaminated land, and to compel manufacturers to make safer consumer products. With that, our agenda. We'll start the evening with a residential update from Stephen Hariri, Exide Cleanup Branch Chief with DTSC, Wade Allman, Project Manager with LEA Environmental, Inc., with third-party monitoring updates. Joining us virtually, Edwin Chip Polinelli, Assistant Director of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, Region 9, on Exide's National Priorities List, and a joint presentation from Mark Lopez and Dr. Jill Johnston, Get Out the Lead. Finally, Director Butler and Mark Lopez will deliver closing remarks to conclude our meeting. Before we move on with our presentations, we'd like to introduce our panelists for the evening, starting with our ETAG members. We have Felipe Aguirre, Mark Lopez of East Yard Communities for Environmental Justice, Dr. Rania Sapti, California State Northridge, and Dr. Jill Johnston, UC Irvine, Wynn School of Population and Public Health. We'd also like to introduce U.S. EPA Region 9 Assistant Director Chip Polinelli, and Wade Allman, Project Manager, LEA Environmental, Inc. Next, we'll introduce our staff, starting with DTSC Director Katie Butler, SMRP Deputy Director Elizabeth Sandberg, Office of Environmental Equity Deputy Director Serlene Grant, and SMR Branch Chief Stephen Hariri. Welcome and thank you again for joining us. Now, a few remarks. Our ETAG co-chairs, DTSC's Director Butler and Mark Lopez of East Yard Communities for Environmental Justice, for a few opening remarks. Director Butler.
Thank you so much for the wonderful introductions, and thank you, Jane Williams, for being here too on the ETAG. I want to make sure we don't miss you. Thank you, good afternoon, buenas tardes. I really appreciate all of you being here. My name is Katie Butler. I'm the Director of the Department of Toxic Substances Control. And I appreciate the folks who are on virtually as well to listen in on the updates we have to provide. We have a full agenda tonight. We have some updates from our DTSC team, and I'm very thankful for the collective expertise here that the ETAG brings. DTSC has made a lot of progress improving the quality controls, the way the cleanup is conducted, and we can't do this alone. We're committed to continue moving this cleanup forward. There's $140 million proposed in the governor's budget to continue carrying this cleanup forward, and I take that responsibility incredibly seriously. And I am extremely grateful for all of the collective expertise sitting up here at the tables and the community leaders who have really contributed and led many of the positive changes that we are implementing today. So again, thank you to everyone up here. And I'm happy we're going to get a presentation on Dr. Johnston's study and Mark Lopez's study, because that was the study that really initiated the department a couple years ago to go back and do some sampling and take that quality control seriously. And so we'll have more updates for you tonight on the sampling that the department did over the course of the last year. Again, thank you for being here and thank you for your time.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Director Butler. Now, we'll have Mark Lopez. Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, same. Thank you, everybody, for showing up here in person and virtually. You know, I think most of the work, obviously, is happening outside of these specific meetings, but the purpose of these meetings is to share information on where we're at, and equally important, to hear from everybody what the experience is out in the field, out in the community, right? And so these are critical opportunities for folks to be able to share. Here's what's happening in my home, on my block, near my school, in my neighborhood, right? I think I'm looking forward to the opportunity to present with Jill a little later our research findings that, as Katie mentioned, have had an impact. I think it's having more of an impact as we continue to advocate. And so the advocacy portion, I think I really want to highlight as being really important for this process, which includes continuing to show up at these meetings, continuing to provide public comment, and continuing to communicate with all of us and everyone at the department outside of these meetings as well. So I'm excited to hear some of the updates myself and participate in the conversation that is to come.
Thank you to our co-chairs, Director Butler and Mark Lopez. A few more introductions with folks we have here joining us. Janet Scully is joining us today. Jane Williams is also joining us. And lastly, Dr. Rania Sopti is joining us virtually. Dr. Rania. Pedro?
Thank you again, everyone. We would now like to welcome and introduce SMRP Branch Chief Stephen Hariri to provide an update on the Exide residential cleanup.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Hariri, Branch Chief for the Exide Residential Project from the California Department of Toxic Substances Control. We're here tonight to provide an update of the Exide residential cleanup and milestones, as well as the parkways. Next slide, please. We'll start with the status of the residential cleanup. As a recap, this map presents the preliminary investigation area where our cleanup efforts are active. The preliminary investigation area includes the 7 jurisdictions outlined. The area includes the cities of Commerce, Los Angeles, Maywood, Bell, Huntington Park, Vernon, and an unincorporated area in the county of Los Angeles. Next slide, please. This graph shows the progress of our cleanup efforts from May 2018 through April of this year. Solid green line shows our steady progress to date, the number of properties cleaned up, and the orange dotted line shows our projected numbers of parcels to be cleaned up. Furthermore, this work continues despite COVID in 2020, smoke from nearby wildfires, and new contractor selection in 2023. Next slide, please. This slide presents the residential cleanup progress. The preliminary investigation area includes approximately 10,000 sensitive land use parcels. These parcels are comprised of single and multifamily residential properties, schools, parks, daycares, and childcare facilities. As of April 17, 2026, a total of 6,155 properties have been cleaned up with 15 crews in the field. 139 parks and daycares cleaned up to date. 10,028 parcels or decision units have been sampled, and a remaining 592 parcels not sampled because homeowners' denial of access. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. DTSC was awarded $70 million in the 2025 California budget. Consequently, DTSC was able to lower the priority threshold set at 190 parts per million to 155 parts per million for lead and extend the cleanup operations in the field to the end of 2026 with 15 field crews. DTSC is committing all funding to continue the residential cleanup with an estimated 500 more properties for the cleanup effort. Next slide, please. Lastly, we have been tracking our contractors' compliance with the project labor agreement. and the reported actual percentages are currently exceeding the hiring goals established in the project labor agreement. Next slide, please. And now we'll discuss the verification retrospective sampling programs. This effort was initiated by DTSC in response to some community and ETAG member concerns regarding the compliance and quality of the cleanup conducted at the properties. The goal of the sampling was to answer the concerns regarding the completed cleanup of properties following the limitations allowed in the governing plans. Next slide, please. As a recap, the main objectives of the cleanup plan are clean up sensitive land use properties, protective of public health and the environment, protect the current and future health of the residential population from lead exposure in soil, minimize the need for land use controls, and lastly, minimize short-term adverse impacts to the residential community due to fugitive dust and soil transport. Next slide, please. This slide presents an overview of the limits of excavation for a typical residential cleanup as depicted in green on the slide. The green area represents accessible yard area that is typically excavated. All site structures, hardscaping, and utilities are protected in place during the excavation. The cleanup plan governs DTSC's cleanup. That's an interim removal action measure intended to quickly address the most urgent public health impacts and immediate harm resulting from exposure to lead contamination. As publicly disclosed, the cleanup plan anticipated certain limitations that would prevent DTSC from removing all lead-impacted soil from the properties. Next slide, please. Specifically, the cleanup plan and work plan recognize and authorize the following conditions as presented that prevent DTSC from reaching a depth of 18 inches. Excavations against houses, garages, outbuildings, driveways, sidewalks, structural perimeter walls, fences, and patios are benched as necessary to avoid undermining the structures. These areas are excavated to a depth of 3 inches within 6 inches of said structures, creating the bench shown, and then excavated to the assigned depth at either a 1-to-1 slope or with benching that achieves a maximum of 1-to-1 slope. Areas around trees and established shrubs are excavated to approximately 6 inches below ground surface, unless roots are encountered within the drip zone to avoid root damage. Areas within approximately 6 inches of underground utilities are not disturbed to prevent damage to their appurtenances. Excavations near electric power poles are benched and do not exceed 12 inches in depth for a radius of 2 feet from the edge of the power pole. And lastly, if the contractor encounters other features such as unregistered underground storage tanks, septic tanks, pipes, or other features that interfere with the planned excavation. Next slide, please. In response to concerns from some of the community members and the XI Technologies Advisory Group members' request and input, DTSC developed a verification and retrospective sampling program to revisit current and previously cleaned up properties with the sampling that started in April of last year and was completed in February of this year. DTSC will continue and looks forward to this collaboration with the working group members. The main objectives of both sampling programs were as follows. Was the cleanup conducted according to the cleanup plan? Did the import clean soil used for backfill meet the requirements of the cleanup plan? Are the sampling results reproducible? And did the cleanup meet the objectives of the cleanup plan? 2 types of samplings was proposed. Verification sampling activities were performed for the most recently cleaned up properties by the DTSC contractor between 2023 and 2025. The retrospective sampling activities were performed for a statistically representative random set of 100 properties selected from previously cleaned properties prior to 2023. Next slide, please. This slide presents the verification and retrospective sampling that is the same as the initial soil sampling activities. The basic features of a generic residential property depicting a house, front yard, backyard, side yard, and driveway are presented. Samples are collected from 8 locations on the property. Typically, samples are collected from 3 locations in the front yard, 3 in the backyard, and 2 near the structure. The locations near the structure are referred to as drip line samples. However, drip line sample locations may be substituted with another location, such as a child play area or an area where water collects, such as a downspout or low-lying area on the property. Approximately 20 samples are collected from depths ranging from 0 to 6 inches, 6 to 12 inches, 12 to 8 inches below ground surface. 2 duplicate samples, 1 per 10 samples, are included and analyzed for data validation process. Soil samples are analyzed using EPA-approved method 6010 for metals. In addition to the soil sampling, lead-based paint screening using X-ray fluorescence is included. X-ray fluorescent analyzer measures the amount of lead in paint. The result of the scan is compared to the benchmark of 0.7 milligrams per square centimeter and considered lead-based paint if exceeded. Next slide, please. This slide presents all the properties available for consideration, denoted by different colors for work conducted during different phases and contractors. Next phase, please. The verification sampling program included 1,375 properties comprising of 350 previously clean properties by NEC in the last amendment and 1,025 by Parsons. The sampling protocol was the same as the initial sampling conducted at the sites to provide an apples-to-apples comparison. Next slide, please. The retrospective sampling consisted of 100 selected properties that were determined statistically and or randomly from the pool of remaining properties cleaned up previously by all contractors, exclusive of those from the verification sampling. The sampling protocol was the same as initial sampling conducted at the sites for an apples-to-apples comparison. Lastly, at the request of the XI Technologies Advisory Group Technical Advisor, 4 properties, 2 initial sampling and 2 cleaned up properties will be selected for additional reproducibility sampling, respectively. Next slide, please. It was difficult to sample all the desired properties, as some of the owners were reluctant to or did not provide access at all for sampling. In addition, it's difficult to discern what, if any, other activities between the time of the cleanup and sampling event may have impacted the results. Moreover, many properties have been identified with lead-based paint on the exterior of homes, and activities that loosen or produce chips may impact the sampling results. Next slide, please. The verification retrospective sampling documents and procedures included health and safety plan, sampling analysis plan, quality assurance project plan. The plans were reviewed and approved by the XI Technologies Advisory Group, Advisor and Working Group. The sampling contractor followed the same project protocols as his initial sampling. Next slide, please. As of February, the sampling of 524 properties for verification sampling and 100 properties for retrospective sampling was completed. DTSC anticipates that the sampling reports will be released in batches publicly starting this quarter as they are completed. Next slide, please. This slide presents the status of the results from the verification retrospective sampling. Approximately 50% of the individual draft property sampling reports are in review process and being completed for release in batches. DTSC estimates that the remainder of the individual reports will be completed by the end of this year. A draft comprehensive evaluation report for both sampling programs is anticipated by the first quarter of 2027. DTSC's preliminary review to date confirms what the letter of completion concluded and disclosed was and remains accurate. Next slide, please. We will now discuss the status of the parkways. Next slide, please. As of January 8th, we completed all of the eligible parkways in the north and south of the preliminary investigation area. We thank you all for your cooperation and understanding in reaching this milestone this past year. Please report outstanding issues regarding the parkways cleanup either through the hotline or online systems. Next slide, please. Based on the jurisdiction requirements and participation, restoration material included in-kind replacement with sod for existing grass and/or hydroseed for bare earth areas. Furthermore, DTSC worked in cooperation with the cities to promote the Urban Forest Management Plan effort underway. Notice was provided to the properties within a week prior to the application of sod or hydroseed for the parkways. The responsibility for the maintenance and care of landscaping in the parkways rests with the jurisdiction and the respective property owner. The hydroseed application as shown in the picture will result in grass only if watered and maintained as recommended. Next slide, please. Lastly, we track both of our parkway contractors' compliance with the project labor agreement, and the reported actual percentages exceeded the hiring goals established in the project labor agreement. Next slide, please. DTSC would like to thank the members of the XI Technology Advisory Group for their continued support, attendance, and participation, as well as the members of the community tonight. As always, we would like to thank all the residents that have signed up for the cleanup and welcomed us into their homes. Likewise, we would like to thank the same residents who have been very gracious and patient and understanding regarding the cleanup of the parkways located directly outside their homes. We're also very grateful to all the field workers who continue to keep this project going every day. For those field workers who are attending this meeting tonight, please extend our sincere gratitude and thanks to your colleagues as well. Lastly, we thank you all for your time and attention during this presentation. If you have any questions, please contact me directly. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a great rest of your evening.
Well, thank you, Stephen. We will now move into our clarifying questions and public comment section. Please remember that you will be given 2 minutes to allow an opportunity for everyone to speak. And there are various ways that you can make a comment or ask a question this evening. If you are participating on Zoom, you can use the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen, and you'll be invited to unmute your audio when it is your turn to speak. If you are on your phone, you can press *9 to join the phone queue. We will read out the last 3 digits of your phone number, and you will be invited to press *6 to unmute your line. If you wish to type in your question or comment, you can click on the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen. And lastly, if you called into our Spanish bridge line and would like to ask a question, please notify the Spanish translator, and they will assist with the translation of your question or comment. Now let's start our public comment section with questions or comments from our ETAG members. We'll open it up.
On slide 23, the verification and retrospective sampling results, there's 2 columns there. One is in review, one is sample results pending. I want to see if you can explain what in review means, because when I see this, this would lead me to believe that there are like 0 homes done, because they're either in review or the samples haven't been run yet. That's what I would assume. But can you explain what those 2 categories mean, and if in fact 0 homes have been completed so far?
Mark, thank you so much. A very good question. The way we did the sampling is that it's about 15 to 20 a week. So it took a long time to do them. They go in batches, they go to the lab. And the process is, after the field sampling that took about 10 months, it goes lab. It takes about 2 months for that to run the samples. And as you see, it's a cascading effect of results coming back. The draft report and data validation takes place, where we have a chemist actually check the results and validate them. And then that takes about 3 months. And then they would send that to us for us to review. And then there will be revisions to make sure that they're all accurate. And then the DTSC review of that follow-up takes about another month. So the final report is about a month once we say to issue it. The whole process is about another 10 months. So if you take April, May, or June, and then start to 10 months, then you see that now the reports are coming through. So what we have right now, about 70 reports that are ready, and they just keep coming. So, but it comes in batches, so it's about 15, 20 thereabouts on ballpark. And please remember, that table, I had to put it together in April. It's now May. So we are making progress, and we do have them ready, and it's starting to come in. It's just that we can't have any errors, and we have multiple checks along the way. So that's why it takes so long. But we do have 70 ready.
Yeah. So that sounds like that's a really long time. It seems excessive. Others I'm sure know better than me as far as whether that's reasonable or not. So then looking at this, there should be a third column that says like complete. Would that be, and that would have 70? Is that what you're saying?
Correct. So what we have right now, Mark, is, remember, I had to do this earlier.
Yeah.
So these are April numbers, so really it was February. We just got done with the sampling. So
Okay.
those are like the most preliminary of numbers. If you give me like the next working group, month or two, I'll have better numbers for you.
Okay.
But yes, we are making progress in that respect.
So again, if this was in real time, there would be another column here that says complete.
That's
and
correct.
The number would be
Yes,
70.
sir. Yes,
Cool.
sir.
So when are we going to be able to see those 70?
It's pending authorization from senior management for the cover letter, and that's really where we are.
Please chime in, senior management.
Yeah. So, as you know, Mark, we've had several conversations with the ETAG working group about the cover letter, and we've got a lot of great feedback. And the last meeting, we got language that I think was more appropriate and acceptable. So we are now translating that. So that's what's holding up this first 70. And I'm hoping to pull the trigger as soon as possible. But we did feel like it was necessary to translate the cover letter.
How many months is that going to take?
I hope, hopefully not a month. Well, we're talking a few days.
Okay.
I don't know the
Yeah. I mean, you can imagine, right?
I
Like,
totally understand.
Yeah. It would be helpful if there was a benchmark that then we can say, hey, that benchmark wasn't achieved. Why wasn't it achieved? Or, hey, y'all are ahead of the benchmark. Great. Keep going, right? It's helpful for us because if not, then we're just feeling like, what's the holdup? What's the holdup? What's the holdup? And we've been expressing that for months now. And so any type of uncertainty feels like you're trying to evade transparency. That's what it feels like, right?
Yeah, and I want to recognize that it took the department a little longer than it should have to incorporate the working group's feedback into that cover letter. And so we made a major breakthrough at the last working group meeting and, got that cover letter to a place that I think we were all happy with. And so now we're in that translation step for the cover letter. So it was important to get the cover letter right because that's what residents are going to see when they get their results, and it needs to be explained in a way that makes sense, right?
So I still didn't hear a date. Maybe that's something that we can have by a certain date. A date by a date. I don't know. I don't know what it's going to take, but I would like to know, which I'm assuming you also wouldn't be prepared for, but so we got 70 done. When are the next 70 going to be done? When are the 70 after that going to be done? It seems like we have some hindsight to let us know whether or not we're happy about how long it's taking. I would assume we should have a sense on when are the waves going to crash, right? Like when are the drop's going to happen? Again, so that way we're not just kind of in limbo here, like, well, they're going to release it whenever they feel like it. We want to be able to. That's part of the transparency is if you can't be transparent, let us know when you can be transparent so we can at least hold you to that and understand if you don't reach that, why was, I don't think any of us are unreasonable But reason needs to be shared with us for us to not feel like we're crazy, you know?
Absolutely. So are we thinking every couple of weeks as a new batch? Is there a thought?
Yeah, our goal is to have the first 70, and then it would be like a waterfall, so on a monthly basis thereafter. It's just getting it out of the spout, right? It's like you have to turn the faucet on. It takes a bit. You have to go pump the well and so on and so forth, as the analogy goes. But once it starts, then it'll start to pick up, just like the sampling. It was slow in the beginning, then we got going, then we got done, and now the reporting would be the same. But monthly, very in short.
And I do want to also mention that for transparency's sake, that the redacted information will be available to anyone who's interested in seeing the sampling results and the reports. So that will be made available as well.
When would that be available?
Well, we want to tell the residents about their own property first. So as we're sending out the batches and the letters to the individual property owners, we felt it was really important that we tell the property owners first before the general public.
So what's the reason for the redacted?
Well, to protect people's personal identifying information.
Also, all of it's going to have redactions.
Redactions of people's personal information that, as a matter of policy, we generally don't release certain types of information that's personal to an individual.
Okay. No, I thought you were saying that perhaps because we have requested aggregated data of whatever is available, right, that wouldn't identify particular homes or particular people who may have authorized the sampling of homes. And so I was hoping that what you were telling us is that we can get aggregated data without identifying information before we get, the final letter, or before the residents even get the final letters. Because if it's aggregated data, which you already have in your possession, that doesn't identify, then any of us who are residents out here that might have had our home sampled, we don't know that any of those are our particular house, right? And so the caution that's being taken, which I think there's, some reasoning for that I agree with, as far as you want to let residents know what their house result is before you put their business out in public.
Right.
But if it's aggregated data without any identifying information, then it doesn't violate that trust. And so could we see that before, could we see that tomorrow? Could we see that Friday? Could we see that next week, ahead of some of this other stuff coming out? I think, we've been expressing for a long time that we want to be part of the conversation, and it just feels like a lot of this stuff we've heard and seen time and time again for months, and it just seems like it just feels like stalling, right? Yeah.
We're not wanting to stall, and I'm sorry that it's taking longer than you want it to be. And we agree. We wish it were going faster as well. So the question is whether or not we can provide all the aggregated data. Well, we don't actually have all the data in hand, right? We have some of the data in hand.
Yeah, the 70 homes.
We have 70 homes, and we're about to release those reports. And the idea being initially was that we would finish all the reports and have them available, then have an aggregate looking backwards kind of analysis. So I think what you're asking is there any way we can get an aggregated analysis earlier?
Of the 70 that are already done, because you already have that data, so it would just be about putting that into a document so that we can look at it. And I do want to make sure that I communicate that we're not going to jump to assumptions on what these 70 homes mean for the rest of the 600 homes, right? We understand this is just a snapshot of the data, but it can get us to start thinking about what might be coming. And if there are any major red flags in what we're seeing, I do think it's important for us to start talking about that. Yeah. And that might increase the urgency for completing the data analysis sooner. Right? I don't know what that would look like. I don't know if that's getting an additional contractor or dedicating more DTSC staff hours or what that might be. But that's my fear, is that we're not going to see anything until it's completely done, and then it's a bomb.
Yeah.
We don't want that. We want to process as we go and try to generate solutions as we go. So I guess I want to understand, If what you're saying is that we cannot see the aggregated data for the first 70 homes that you all have already completed, why can't we see that?
I tell you what, I think you probably can. I just need to make sure that I follow up with the team and make sure it's possible. But I understand what you're saying, and that information, as it becomes publicly available, is there a way to aggregate it to make it available at the same time?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I appreciate what you're saying, Mark, as far as not wanting to jump to conclusions with the first 70, right? Because that 70 is in a randomly sampled set. So we wouldn't be able to make any kind of, generalizations. But with that understanding, I think we can definitely talk about how that's possible on Friday at our working group meeting. Let's do it.
And I hate to interrupt. I want to do a time check. We are supposed to be in our second presentation. We have 4. So I wanted to see if we have any other questions from any of our other ETAG members, because we just want to make sure that do we have any online or any other ETAG members that have any questions? I want to make sure that we don't, okay. Yes, let's go ahead. Who wants to go next? Dr. Johnston or
Yes.
Okay, go right ahead.
I'm just going to pose a question, and for time, maybe we can discuss it more Friday.
Okay.
So, thank you for this presentation. One thing when you were describing sort of the status of, or just like the process, right, of getting the results from the lab, it seems like there's some kind of back and forth process between the lab and DTSC to sort of fix the reports. And so I was hoping you could just explain to us a little bit more, like what you're looking for and what are you talking about when you're going back and forth with the lab on the results. So thank you. I'll pass it to Jane.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I have a couple things to say. I'm very interested in this back and forth with the lab too, because I just spent 5 years working on the ELAB certifications for the labs with the intercoupled mass specs, so that every lab now in the country that's certified to do lead testing has the rapid assay. And I cannot believe it's taking 2 months. This is like 100 homes. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, for the people who are here in the audience, I would imagine it is impossible to understand what the heck we are talking about and why this is important. So let me just demystify this for you. This is now the largest, most costly cleanup in the state's history. It is one of the largest, most costly cleanups in the country's history. It is one of the largest, most costly cleanups in the history of the world. And we are not sure if it's being effective or not, because we do not have the retrospective sampling. So that's why you are seeing all of this machination, and why you might be so interested in how frustrated the members of the ETAG are, that it is taking so long. Okay, so my son has a partner. Her brother is a CHP officer. He pulls my son over after Scouts a couple weeks ago, just for shits and giggles, because they were in South Scouts together, right? And he's done the gun on his car, and he was going like a mile over the speed limit, right? We have satellites in the sky that we can see chemical warfare agent in the sky with, right? I just spent 5 years updating all the lead mass specs in the country. You are got to be kidding me that it's going to take us a year to get the retrospective sampling done. Okay, to sit here and tell us that that's the best you can do is unfriggin' believable to me. And I know you guys are telling us that this is not the slow play, but I got to tell you, it sure looks like it. Now, I just want to remind everybody that has been here as long working on this project as I have, that in the middle of COVID, I'm asked by the pro tem and the speaker of the legislature to attend a hearing in downtown LA with Hilda Solis, an oversight hearing on the Exide cleanup and about why it's taking so long. So I find myself in an auditorium with like 5 people. They fly it's a person who has a gun and who is there to make sure that there's order in this giant room. And it's Hilda Solis, her 2 staffers, and the guy with the gun, okay? And I get to listen to Meredith Williams, the prior director of DTSC, tell the state legislature that the reason the Exide cleanup is taking so long is from a lack of parking spaces for the workers. I don't know who has been here long enough, okay? And this today reminds me of that moment in time when Hilda Solis looked at me and I thought she was going to have a heart attack. I, honest to God, feared for her life, right? And she quietly walks up there and she says, listen, if we're having a problem with parking spaces, I think LA County could help you with that. We could, I mean, seriously, like, come on, okay? If you guys are having a problem getting 100 home samples run, I think I might be able to help you with that. This needs to be a priority, okay? We are now doing 2 more years, $140+ million, and we don't know if the cleanup's being effective or not. Okay, whoever becomes the next governor of this state, I'm going to tell you, all of you, this is not going to slide. Okay? It's not going to slide. We have got to do better. So if you guys need help with the labs to get this stuff back, you should not be going back and forth with the lab. It's a number. It's a number. It's not a back and forth. It's a number. It's just like when he ran the gun on my kid's car. It's a number. All right. Enough. And this cannot be we don't have enough parking spaces.
Thank you, Jane. Online. Just go right ahead, Felipe.
Okay, I wanted to ask, so we have 70 results already. Are we prepared to tell the people which of their houses passed, the process? And if it didn't pass, what are we going to tell them? Are we going to call those people into a meeting and explain to them why their properties passed or did not pass? And what's going to be the alternative for those families? Not the 70, but the 100 that we did the retrospective sampling and the other sampling process. Are we prepared to do something about it, or just we're going to send them the information, then people are going to receive it? Like right now we receive flyers from DTSC. Yeah, I got a lot of flyers, but I don't know what's going on. You read a letter and whatever, So what's the plan? If the 70 or the 700 or whatever it is, the amount, they don't pass. What are we going to tell people? Are we going to call them in and say, this is what's going on? Or is it going to be atomized, where a person in Boyle Heights, a person in Commerce, a person in HP and Bell, they don't know what's going on. It seems like the information we want to give it out to them in little like drops and drops and drops of information. I mean, are we going to do a better job than the Epstein files?
Yes, so this is something that we have been talking to the working group about, and we will continue to do that because as the results come back, if things are concerning, we need to have that conversation with the working group, but also we need to have the conversation with the property owners and figure out next steps. I don't have specifics because we have to deal with each situation on its own. But I hear you, and yes, we will have to take follow-up actions if their results come back and it's of concern from a health perspective.
Yeah, so I'll just add on that some properties may require additional investigation depending on what we find. Now, I want to also respond, Jane, to some of your comments and remind folks that this is actually the second time we're going back to sample the properties. So in our normal process for cleanup, we sample after the cleanup is done, and we provide each resident with a letter of completion. So that letter of completion shows the sampling results post-cleanup. Not post-cleanup. Yes. No. Correct me? Is that not right?
I don't believe that is accurate. I think that the sampling happens prior to, and then we put clean backfill in.
The clean backfill.
Yes.
So, Stephen, can you comment on what the letter of completion for each home includes?
Sure.
And the clean backfill to prevent the lead exposure?
I'm sorry? Oh.
I want to make sure I get this right. Apologies.
We do have a board that has the LOC content in there. And also, it is the excavation, and there are post-confirmation samples taken, but they are separate and not inclusive of the verification retrospective sampling. Thank you.
So the post-confirmation sampling is included in that letter of completion
That's correct.
after each cleanup. So this is a second time we're going back to do confirmation sampling. I just want to be clear about that.
No, that's not right.
So, and I may be wrong, my understanding from reviewing the letter of completion is that the fill material is sampled like in bulk prior to being brought to the property, and it has to be under 80 ppm, and that the on-site sampling is at depth. So after like you excavate and you go to like the 18 inches or the 6 inches, like depending on that sampling plan we saw, then that is sampled. That's what's sampled the second time, not the surface level, right? So can you, right, is that, so I think what the retrospective sampling is doing and what the post-cleanup sampling is doing is measuring two different things.
That's correct. And that's
this is-
why I
this
said
also,
there's
listen, you got to understand, resuspension of the lead that is here, that we don't have a plan to clean up, is the big problem. Okay, we don't have a plan to clean up the lead that is literally across the street from Exide, that is some of the highest concentration lead on the face of the earth. We don't have a plan for that. Okay, so this is why the ETAG recommended we don't go parcel by parcel by parcel. Okay, because we're worried about resuspension. And that's what this verification sampling is supposed to be getting at. Have we, because we don't have a holistic approach to the cleanup, we don't have a durable approach to the cleanup, we're just cleaning up parcel by parcel by parcel. Is this effective? Okay, this is total different sampling, Katie, than what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, I agree, it's also important. I just want to be clear that there was multiple rounds of sampling. It's not the first time, right?
No. This is the first time we've done verification sampling. That's not right. This is the only verification sampling we have. And this verification sampling goes to the durability of the cleanup. Are we getting resuspension or are we not? That was to answer that question. Resuspension is such a huge problem that there are 8 major sources of, can you please not put that in front of my face? Okay, no, I am not going to stop talking, okay? Okay, resuspension is so important on lead cleanups at industrial sites that it is listed as one of the 8 major sources of lead in the environment by US EPA. So I have a copper smelter, I have a lead smelter, I have a mine, and I have a place that's been contaminated with lead, and it's the resuspension of the lead that's not being cleaned up. Of the hundreds of tons of lead that have gone into East LA, going parcel by parcel by parcel, we're just getting a fraction of the lead that's here. We do not yet have a holistic plan. That's why EPA is here, right? We don't have a holistic plan to clean up all this lead. And so the experts are telling us, you're going to get resuspension. And the verification sampling is to try to tell us it's not happening or it's not happening yet. That's why this fight is so important. And that's why it taking a year is not acceptable.
I need to do a time check. I'm so sorry. We are past time, and we have 3 more presentations. If you don't mind, I would love it if we can move into our next presentation.
I'd like to make a proposal. I was up trying to text you.
Okay.
To the ETAG, to the co-chairs, respectfully. You can choose to go through the whole agenda, or you could choose to change the agenda if you feel like this is the conversation you need to have right now, and adjust your times. This is your meeting. But we have to be out of the building by 8. That is what we have to do. So you can figure out what you want to talk about and how long you want to.
Yeah, I'm not going to tell Jane to stop talking, that's for sure. I mean, I think this is important, right? I don't know that any of this is anything that we've said for the first time. It might be, it's probably not even the first time we've said this at one of these public meetings. So I think that's part of what's frustrating here. But I think the conversations that need to be had are being had. And if we can't get through an agenda, that means we need to have another meeting, right? It doesn't mean that we don't do the work. It means that maybe we need to talk about scheduling an additional meeting. Yeah.
So however, through the co-chairs, however you'd like to do it, it's fine. I just wanted to bring your attention to, we do have a hard stop with
Yeah,
this
yeah.
facility and with the public.
For sure.
Okay.
All right, well, we want to thank everyone again for the dialogue and for your input. We're going to be moving on to the next presentation.
Now, Project Manager with LEA Environmental, Inc., Wade Allman, providing a status report on third-party monitoring.
Are we moving on?
Wade?
Oh, wait,
Katie, are
I
we
don't know if we
moving on?
decided,
Yeah, we can move on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
No, I think that last discussion was definitely productive, and I hear the concerns, so thank you for sharing.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Wade Allman. I'm an environmental geologist with LEA Environmental, and our company runs the third-party monitoring program for the Exide residential cleanup. Thank you for inviting me to speak tonight. I'll present a brief introduction to the third-party monitor program. I can move over. Okay. Thank you. Followed by another brief update. Next slide. Nope, I'm sorry. The back slide. There we go. The Exide third-party monitor conducts unannounced independent inspections of residential and parkway cleanup activities, as well as inspections of the verification sampling program. This program is funded by the state of California via DTSC, but is not directed by DTSC. I believe the third-party monitor idea originated with this group, with ETAG. We have 2 full-time and 2 part-time inspectors who are young environmental scientists or engineers from within the community or nearby communities. Next slide. So on the left slide is what the flow of information used to be, and on the right is what it is now, and the third-party monitor is represented by the big blue circle in the middle there. Third-party monitor is one component of the overall quality control program for the Exide cleanup. In response to concerns from ETAG and the community, DTSC made a commitment to a bigger and better QA/QC program for the cleanup contract that began in 2024. The third-party monitor is responsible for documenting contractor compliance with project operations plans and health and safety plans to encourage thorough and safe cleanups. Another important aspect of our work is documenting and communicating complaints or grievances coming from the community members and or project workers, either anonymously or not, at the preference of the person. Next slide. How does the program work? Well, our inspectors are out in the field every day observing cleanup activities. To ensure consistency, we use electronic checklists on a customized app on iPad tablets to evaluate critical components of the operations plan and health and safety plans. To date, we have developed and used 5 separate customized checklists, including residence excavation, residence restoration, parkway excavation, parkway restoration, and verification and retrospective sampling. Photos and maps of each site are attached to the inspection reports. Next slide. Okay, that's the introduction, and here's the update part. Excuse me. To date, we've conducted about 4,500 inspections. This includes about 1,300 parkway inspections and 2,200 residential inspections, plus a handful of verification and sampling inspections. On average, we do about 40 to 45 inspections per week, and it's not a drive-by kind of thing. It's at least an hour and a half per inspection. We report our findings on a weekly basis to DTSC, and DTSC in turn works with the remediation contractors to correct recurring issues and improve performance. We've also participated in site worker training programs as well as ETAG-led field trips. Next slide. What are we finding? For residential cleanups, this is a list of the top non-compliance observations for the early part of 2026 in the category of operations plan issues. and I'll just read them right off the slide there. House vents not covered, soil tracked off-site, visible dust in air, lifts for clean backfill greater than 8 inches, no protective plastic for personal property. For context, of the approximately 90 things that we're looking at on each checklist, on each visit, approximately 60 things are related to compliance with the ops plan. Next slide. This is a list of the top non-compliance observations from the early part of 2026 in the category of health and safety issues. Hand washing not performed when leaving the work zone, no hand washing station, incomplete PPE. And PPE stands for personal protective equipment, which is the hard hat, safety glasses, steel-toed boots, and high visibility vest. Again, for context, of the approximate 90 things we're looking at on each visit, approximately 20 are related to the health and safety plan. Next slide. This is a list of the top non-compliance observations from the early part of 2026 for the category of air monitoring issues. There are 2 types of air monitoring being done at residential cleanup sites. Perimeter monitoring, which measures how much dust is made by work activities. And the other type is monitoring for dust and lead particles outside of the home entry. Perimeter monitoring not positioned correctly relative to active excavation, no entryway monitor or monitor not functioning, PM10 readings at entryway monitor exceeding air quality management district limits. PM10 means that's the size of the particle of dust. Approximately 10 checklist items are related to air quality monitoring. Next slide. Okay, what about trends? This graph shows the number of non-compliance observations in the 3 main categories for each of the 5 months that span the current phase of work. So April 2024, October 2024, April 2025, October 2025, and March 2026. Some months, there are more cleanups than other months, so the absolute numbers can be a little misleading. But if we can normalize to a very simple test of how many non-compliance observations we're seeing per inspection, that's shown on the right-hand side of the chart there, the vertical axis on the right-hand side. There's been a gradual trend of improvement followed by what seems to be a leveling out throughout last year. So the average was currently the average is about 0.75 and 0.8 issues per inspection. Next slide. Okay, here's a little more complicated looking slides. Sorry about that, but scientists like to look at crooked lines on graph paper. With the data that we've accumulated, we can look as deep as we want into possible temporal trends, meaning trends through time. On these graphs, we've combined residential and parkway inspections from all of 2025 to show all visible dust and soil tracked off observations from last year. To us, the top graph looks like a seasonal effect. It's drier in the summer, there's no rain, so it makes sense that there would be more dust in the summer. And it looks like the residential cleanups track similarly to the parkways. The soil track off category, shown on the bottom graph, is a little different. We don't think this is a seasonal issue. We think this trend is due to the geometry of parkways. Every bit of work on a parkway cleanup is no more than a couple feet from the street. Space is also limited. So the rise in soil track-off observations looks like it was related to the predominance of parkway cleanups in the last half of 2025. If we're right about this, the trend should continue downward in 2026, as we're now back to only residential cleanups. Next slide. And that concludes my presentation for this evening. I want to close by saying the third-party monitor program is meant to be a resource for the community as well as DTSC, and that we really enjoy providing this service to the community. If you have any questions, reach out to any of our third-party monitors out in the field, recognizable by a big yellow vest that says third-party monitor across it. And here's my contact information, as well as my colleague, Dr. Jim Wells, who's the third-party monitor contract manager. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wade. We'll now move on to clarifying questions and public comments. Remember, you'll be given 2 minutes to allow everyone an opportunity to speak. There are various ways that you can make a comment or ask a question this evening. If you're participating on Zoom, use the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen. You'll be invited to unmute your audio when it's your turn to speak. If you're on your phone, press *9 to join the phone queue. I'll say the last 3 digits of your phone when it's your turn to speak. You then press *6 to unmute. If you wish to type in your question or comment, you can click the Q&A icon at the bottom of the screen. And lastly, if you called into our Spanish bridge line and would like to ask a question, notify our translator. Our translator will be available to translate your questions and comments. All right, let's start our public comment section with questions or comments from our ETAG members. No questions?
Co-chairs, Rania has her hand raised online. Would you like to go there? Yes.
Hi, Rania. Can you please unmute your line and ask your question?
Hi. Thank you for my comment. I appreciate all the presentations. And my question is, I think it would be helpful that we all hear about what gets done with all this information that is presented to us and to DTSC by the third-party monitor. For example, the trends that show that the dust levels are higher during the summer months, what is being done about it? Wetting the soil is one dust control method. Does that happen as a result of what we're finding out here? What's the feedback loop? Not necessarily per incident, and I know we've talked about that before, but I think we all would benefit from hearing about the feedback loop when there are incidents of like PPE not being used or because it may sound small, but this is the life of a human being who's affected, and can be too many, depending on what the exposure might be. One is about my first is about the trends that we're seeing. And the other is about individual observations and what's the feedback loop with DTSC.
Thank you, Rania.
Now, next, we'll open the floor. I'm sorry. Thank you for your question, Rania. We'll go to our panel.
Hi, Rania. Wade Allman here. The part of a partial answer to your question is, as you've probably heard us say before, is every incident of every non-compliance issue is communicated directly to DTSC, who communicates it on a weekly basis to the contractor. And so that's continual reinforcement and actual, sort of case by case, incident by incident feedback loop. On the bigger picture, things like trends through time, we're just starting to put those together through the database since we've been doing it for over a year now, and looking at, as I presented on these graphs, particular issues that are perhaps more meaningful: dust in the air, dirt being tracked out on the street for the community at large, and being able to identify potential causes of those trends, as I've just talked about here. And so that's another second sort of very important part of the process, which is not necessarily well defined at this point, but clearly DTSC, if they're paying attention tonight, saw some of those trends through time and causes, whether they're within DTSC power to deal with or not, is another thing. But anyway, so I think it's best I can answer that right now.
Thank you. Does DTSC have something to add to this?
Yes, Ron. Is this one? Yeah, sorry. Sorry, yeah, it's off as well. My apologies. Yes, Dr. Rania, we also have the weekly reports that we get from the third-party monitor. Those are sent to the contractor, and they're reminded of the actual task forces and the type of issues that have arisen. We also meet with the third-party monitor every 2 weeks and discuss trends and try to work on those. But what we're seeing is not so much as a constant on every team. It's just, it's more like a whack-a-mole. When we work on one thing, something else comes up. And it's seasonal based on like dust for the summers. And yes, we can add more water, but vigilance is usually the answer, and repetition and vigilance. And we're here and open to any other suggestions, but humans are humans, and they tend to be certain ways. So we try to work with each individual and put them with stronger teams and those who have different ethics whereby they can work safer and smarter. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so we're entering the summer right now, which is exactly when we're going to see the dust spike. And so I'm wondering if maybe that could be identified as a future conversation. Maybe this Friday's agenda might be a little packed, but for a future conversation.
Thank you, Rania, for your question. Next, we'll open the floor to questions or comments from our in-person attendees. In person, please raise your hand and a colleague will come to you with the microphone.
Hello, my name is Eats Papalopatley. I am a member of the Boyle Heights community, and I really wanted to point out the fact that where your cutoff is for the cleanup of the Exide residue, my home is directly on the other side of the 60 freeway, and that factory has been there since the 80s. So that has been contaminating our dirt, our land, for years, decades, right? Even across the street from my home is a park that's actively being used by our community. There's an elementary school up the street. Students every single day walk to that park, and they go there because that's what the park is for. It's for our community. And to know that there's still nothing being happened, there's no way that only within that 1 mile radius, especially with the freeway being right there, there's so much vibration from from those cars, there's no way that toxicity isn't being moved to the other side of that freeway. So clearly there's like an issue there. And it really frustrates me, the fact that we're going like, oh, these 70 homes. Those homes have families. Most of those families are multi-generational. I live with my grandmother. We have multiple people in our home. Most of the homes there are bigger families. And they're constantly being neglected. And it's been like this for generations. That home where I currently live has been in my family for years. It has been there since before the factory was closed down. And my father has for over a year, been trying to get our home cleaned up from the Exide sewage, and we still have not been contacted back. We still haven't had our soil cleaned, and we were even a part of the lawsuit for the Exide closing. So there's no way that it's taking you this long to just get to the other side of the freeway. I'm not even a mile away. I'm not even 50 feet away from it. And we're still not seeing anything happening here, and that's really concerning that you're not looking at the humanity of it.
Thank you. Any comments from our panel? Again.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, thank you. I was going to ask our staff to come take your information so we can follow up with you.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think what she's speaking to is the need to expand the sampling area, right? I think we we know that the 1.7 miles is saturated with lead, and hopefully, if time permits, we'll have some more information on lead beyond the 1.7 boundary. But I think that's what she's speaking to specifically.
Hi, my name is Tiff Sanchez. I'm a youth organizer for East Yard Communities for Environmental Justice, where we have 2 youth clubs on campuses at Roosevelt High School and Mendez High School. Both campuses are outside of the testing zone. If you look at the top of that map right there, they're on the other side of the upper flat border. So I'm asking you all, I think it was maybe like 10 years ago that we were asking you all to test the parkways, and now you all are coming over here and presenting 70, 20, 50, whatever parkways that are being cleaned up now. When the residents asked you to clean those up, you contested it. DTSC contested it. They said, well, we don't know if the lead in those parkways is from Exide, right? And so now we're over here telling you all that this zone needs to be expanded. How am I going to schools in impacted areas, and we know they're impacted because we have an XRF machine that we use, same as DTSC, where we've tested homes outside of this zone, and we've found levels of lead that have exceeded 600 parts per billion, okay? So we're asking you right now. I have students that were not able to come here tonight because they've been doing AP testing all week, but they said, shout out my neighborhood. So I'm going to tell you guys, and hopefully somebody writes this down. The neighborhood next to Pecan Park, test those homes. The neighborhood next to Mariachi Plaza, test those homes. The neighborhood next to Evergreen Cemetery, test those homes, because we know that the 60 freeway is not some magical curtain that stops lead from traveling. We know because scientists have told us that the wind patterns push lead outside of Boyle Heights, over Boyle Heights. So we are asking you now, we're demanding, test those homes because you will find elevated levels of lead. And if you don't believe me, believe the data that we have, because we are telling you there's lead in our communities that need to be cleaned up. And we have youth members here. One member has had her home cleaned up. Another member lives outside, literally, the brick wall that separates her home from the 60 freeway. And how do I go to the schools every day and look them in the eye and teach them about the impacts of lead? And I tell them, you're outside of the zone, so I'm sorry, but your homes won't get cleaned up. I can't do that. So I'm telling you all, test those leads, expand the testing zones, and do it not in another 12 years. Do it now.
Thank you. Appreciate your thoughts.
They're not thoughts, it's proof.
We appreciate your concerns. Next. We have another question from the audience.
Yes, thank you for giving me this opportunity. My name is Fernando Cabrera. I've been working for the project for quite a while, since we simply in the beginning with EFI. And it's very frustrating, to be honest with you, to have those results not ready to discuss and review it. Looks like they want to give you the information, very complicated information, to a kid when they open the door. Sounds like you want to do that. Those information, if it's not basic, before and after, simple, and has you pass or not pass, like when you go to the small check. You test it, you pass it, you have to fix it, go back. Simple as that. I don't know what has to be. I know it has the protocol to go back and forth, and taking forever. But there is a lot of people waiting for those results and to feel safe for those houses that are being cleaned. Those workers are working so hard. And even they have maybe injured and they are sweating and they working so hard, pretty with details. But the thing is, it fell from the people who is looking over when sometimes they miss some points of doing like a dust control, like doing more details when they're cleaning up. So Girardelli, we have a Girardelli, right? We have DTSC. We had a tour monitor party to look over that, and also on top of that, the supervisor from the contractor. How can we fail the simple cleanup that it has already measured how much you're going to clean up? There's no way. And then, on top of that, they send them to check to see if the house is already being cleaned up. I don't know if those people who's taking those samples are certified. They don't have a certification to take those samples, even though maybe they're going to think, oh, they are clean soil. They're not going to contaminate themselves. But it has to be certified, follow protocol. And please do something about it. I really, really, really want to be part of this and have solutions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Again, appreciate your comments. We're going to go ahead and transition. Thank you again for your questions, comments, and your input. We'll now transition to the next presentation. Now.
Hi, good evening. I'm Chipolinelli. I'm the Assistant Director for Superfund for US EPA in Southern California. Next slide. I'm here today to give an overview of the Superfund process, where we are at in the Superfund process, and where we are at in the proposed listing of the Exide facility on the national priorities list. Next slide. The illustration you see here is the Superfund process, and where we are at is in the assessment. So EPA has determined that Exide is eligible for being proposed on the national priorities list. We have proposed the site, and we are now considering it for what we call final rulemaking, or adding it to the NPL listing.
Chip, can you hear us?
Yes.
Can you hold, please? We're having a little technical difficulty.
Sure.
Quick. Hold on one second. There we go. He got it. Okay. Okay, we can continue.
Okay, thank you. So where we're at is we are considering it for a final rulemaking, which is adding the Exide facility to the NPL list. What you can expect if we do final rule and list Exide is the next step would be characterization of the facility. And that usually includes taking extensive amount of samples, doing investigation. This part of the characterization would actually be expedited because DTSC has done a lot of work characterizing the facility itself, setting up a vapor extraction pilot. So this will be, should it be listed, an expedited process for us to get to what is the next step is what is the remedy for the facility, which is our record of decision. The next part is after a remedy has been selected, we would then do cleanup, any post-cleanup operations, and then eventually delist the site from the NPL, meaning it's been cleaned up or the contamination has been capped or stabilized. Next slide. So where we have gone over the last few years on the NPL process is, like I said, we've evaluated it. The site meets the criteria for being proposed. We received headquarters approval for the proposal. The state has concurred on it. We published and federal registered the proposed listing. We had a 30-day comment period, which was extended to 60 days. We worked on response to comments. And as a result of evaluating the initial comments we received for the proposed listing, we issued what's called a notice of data availability. And that was a technical memo that took into consideration additional data to support the proposed listing. We went out again for public comment since it was new information that was provided as a part of the proposed listing. And we are currently in the final process of responding to those comments and compiling a responsiveness summary. The final step would be a EPA determination for final rule and making a determination for listing. Next step, or next slide. For those who haven't been a part of the project as long as we have here, here's the timeline. We initially, or the state of California asked EPA to list it in July 2022. The site assessment and evaluation of the site was completed in 2024. We released our site inspection in 2024, our report. The state concurred on our listing and we proposed it in July 2nd of 2024. In September of 2024. As I said, there was a 60-day comment period, a notice of data availability, and we're currently finalizing the rulemaking package for consideration for a final rule. EPA anticipates that we will be making a final rule decision this year. Next slide. The following is a list of contact people. If you have questions, you can reach out to myself, the site assessment manager, Pat Kelly, Leslie Ramirez, who's the MPL coordinator, who has been working on this MPL listing, as well as a community involvement manager, David Yogi. If you are interested in the public comments that we received, that we're currently responding to and working on responses, you can review all the comments we received. 33 of them initially were in favor of the listing. We did receive 2 extensive comments or sets of comments in opposition, and that's generally what we've been working on now. We will continue to update the progress of the NPL listing and the decision to add on the NPL list, and here's a website to look for updates. Thank you.
Well, thank you again, Chip. We will now move into the clarifying questions and public comment section. Please remember that you will be given 2 minutes to allow everyone an opportunity to speak, and there are various ways that you can make a comment or ask a question this evening. If you are participating on Zoom, you can use the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen. You will be invited to unmute your audio when it is your turn to speak. If you're on your phone, you can press *9 to join the phone queue. We will read out the last 3 digits of your phone number, and you will be invited to press *6 to unmute your line. If you wish to type in your question or comment, please click on the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen. And lastly, if you called into our Spanish bridge line and would like to ask a question, please notify the Spanish translator, and they will assist with the translation of your question or comment. We'll start public comments and questions from our ETAG members.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation, Chip. I just wanted to, and I know a lot of this is uncertain, right? But theoretically, what is the soonest that the final rulemaking decision could happen?
I think, like you said, I don't have a definite date. All I can tell you is EPA anticipates making that decision this calendar year, so in 2026.
Thanks, Chip. This is Janet from LA County Public Health. I appreciate you, and I respect you, but I sort of feel like we heard the same thing about a year ago, and I really am curious, what is the internal holdup in making this determination? Because it really does feel like there hasn't been any new information. You've been responding to these 2 extensive comments for about a year, and it just really feels like we should have a determination by now. So can you just maybe tell us what's going on internally that may be creating a holdup?
Yeah, certainly. Well, the we did receive the initial comments, the two initial in opposition, which created the notice of data availability. And we went out for public comment for that again, and we received a set of pretty extensive comments in regards to the new data that was presented or that we evaluated. And we're taking, I have to say, we're taking our diligence to evaluate that data and make sure that as we are presenting this to the decision makers, because this is a headquarters rulemaking decision, that this site is given the consideration and we're following the process necessary to make that decision, and that we have the data to support that.
Thank you, everyone. Any additional questions from the ETAG members? I'm not seeing any hands. Thank you again for the input. Next, we will open it up to the floor. If there are any questions or comments from our in-person attendees, please raise your hand and a colleague will come to you with a microphone. We got two.
Hi again. So I would like to refer back to what Jane had said earlier about how this is the most expensive toxic cleanup, and you guys have only done 1 mile radius. Imagine how long it's taking you to do these 70 homes, with how much money you've spent on that alone, when your your original estimate for how many homes you would have done by now was over 1,000. So clearly you guys don't have enough resources here, if that's the reason why it's being delayed so long, right? Because we're not being told nothing, the community is not being told nothing. Even the people who are actually living in those properties that you guys have tested haven't been told anything. So if the delay is coming from you guys don't have enough funds, then clearly you guys should be right here fighting with us for you to be getting more funding for this, because it's clearly an issue among our community that there isn't enough resources going around for that. And I also wanted to mention earlier, which I forgot to say, our community is mostly people who are using public transit or walking. So especially within that 1 mile radius that you guys cleaned, right? So that toxicity is constantly being moved throughout our community. And like, I don't understand how it's taking this long to do that. So clearly there are funds needed there. So thank you.
I want to thank you for your input. Again, we'll open it up to the panel in case there's a response. All right, not seeing any. Please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Ambad. I'm a staff researcher at Communities for a Better Environment. So hi, everyone, the working group. I do want to ask that I know ETAG technology is proposed for the Superfund designation based on the groundwater exposure pathway because it has high TCE contamination, right, below the surface of the soil. So while we wait for the Superfund announcement, I'm curious about what's being done to assess the potential vapor intrusion risk in the adjacent facilities near the site and homes in the preliminary investigation area. We know that TCE can have carcinogenic properties, right? It just depends on the exposures and all the other factors. But I am concerned about the lack of soil vapor and vapor intrusion testing for homes in the PIA. I know that y'all keep talking about that there's a soil vapor pilot project on the site at ETAG, so thank you for those updates. But I'm curious, like, is there one for the communities, especially like around Maywood, based on that technical memo? And correct me if I'm wrong, Chip, I don't remember, but the way it's flowing, it's probably hitting the direction of like Maywood residents. But yeah, I'm just curious, like, is there a pilot project for communities? Is anyone doing testing of these homes? Or is anyone investigating the flow of TCE? Because we all know VOCs has the capacity to migrate off-site, and by that means it leaves the site and goes into the surrounding area depending on like the soil factors, right? So yeah, is there any updates on that or any investigation for the impacted communities?
Thank you for the question.
Yeah, in regards to the pilot for the SVE or the soil vapor, I would defer to DTSC. They're conducting that pilot and they're working on the facility currently. So any investigation in regards to soil vapor, if I could defer to DTSC to that question.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Amber, I believe we answered your question, but the TCE vapor is localized to the facility by the south yard. Doesn't really expand much off the facility. In addition, when additional work is done, additional investigation will be required if it does go off-site. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for the input and for the dialogue. Towards the sake of time, we are going to be moving on so we can meet the rest of our agenda. We would now like to welcome and introduce Mark Lopez of East Yards Communities for Environmental Justice and Dr. Jill Johnston, UC Irvine, Wendt School of Population and Public Health, to share their joint presentation, Get Out the Lead.
All right, hello everyone. So we know we're running short at time and we want to have sort of an opportunity to have more dialogue about some of the findings from the research study. So our sort of compromise discussion was to maybe just introduce, share back the findings for folks here, and then set up another time to have a more full discussion. And so I'll pass it to Mark and he can kind of describe maybe the motivation for this work that we've done, and then we can give you some high-level highlights, maybe.
Yeah. So we'll be in conversation with DTSC about setting up maybe a special session just for this, because the next meeting that we'll have in this format is going to be like 6 months from now, right? Which is way too much time. So where this research is born out of is actually these meetings, and it's not, in all collaboration, but a lot of it was from Jill hearing us talk about our concerns, right? Our concerns that homes are being recontaminated, that homes may be cleaned up improperly, that this patchwork approach, as opposed to taking a sectoral approach, might be creating an issue where homes are cleaned and then recontaminated, right? And so, Jill, who we've partnered with for a long time on a variety of issues, found a research grant opportunity and said, hey, here's an opportunity. Would you all want to partner on this? And of course, we said yes. Part of the grant was to get an XRF machine to be able to run soil samples. Our community had been wanting that for a decade, but we couldn't afford that because it's tens of thousands of dollars, right? And so this research grant created that opportunity, and I think that's part of the importance of this type of meeting, right? I hear Ambar talk about TCE testing, and I'm like, who out there has got something we could test some TCE with, right? And maybe we can do some of that ourselves if there is a lag on some of this other stuff, right? And so I think this research is really part of a long history of having to push and push and push for more info, more transparency, and more action, right? And so I'll kick it off to Jill to share more.
So the motivation for this work was really to understand more about Lead levels in homes that had already been cleaned up, like our focus was really on the surface, so like the top 2 to 3 inches of the soil, and measuring the lead levels in that surface soil because that's what folks are most exposed to. And then we also wanted to test outside of the 1.7 miles, and we went out to about 4.5 miles, and that goes back to analysis of blood lead testing results that has showed there was elevated levels of blood lead in kids in about kind of the 4.5 miles around Exide. And so just at some point I can share all the technical details and statistics if people want to know them around this, but this is kind of the high level findings. So this is among cleaned homes. We took 3 samples per home, so it's not the same protocol that the EPA sets up. With this, we found about 60% of those samples were below the 80 parts per million. And that's really the threshold that we look at for the state of California of having kind of lower risk. We look up for that, sorry, this is kind of small, but the yellow 20% were between 80 and 200. 12% were 200 to 400, and then we still had 7% of samples that exceeded 400 parts per million in homes that had already been cleaned out. And when we look at this at kind of per home, about 7 and 10 homes had 1 sample at least above this 80 parts per million. And we know really the goal of a lot of this remedial action was to try to get those levels below 80 parts per million. And this was about, I can give you all the numbers, but about 220 cleaned homes that we sampled. So if you want to go to the next slide. Okay, so this is looking in those areas outside of the PIA. Largely, we concentrated sampling in sort of the north part of Boyle Heights and unincorporated East LA that are just outside this 1.7 miles of the preliminary investigation area. Here, essentially, we see results that really look the same as what it looked like for the community before there was any cleanup. Right, and that is that almost all the samples that were coming out were above 80 parts per million. So in this case, we have about over 60% of the samples were above the 80 parts per million, and here we see kind of over 33% that were above 200. Oh no, sorry, I'm reading this wrong. I apologize, the angle's weird. So 89% were above 80 parts per million. And then we see, about close to half that were above 200 parts per million. So essentially, the essence of this is that there's still a lot of lead in these communities that are kind of outside of this cleanup area, and suggests that there's potential exposure pathways for people living in those neighborhoods.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we learned when doing outreach, because we anticipated some level of recontamination, that's why we wanted the sampling to happen, right? But what we didn't anticipate is that when we were out in the field talking to residents and even talking to workers, that we were going to hear that the cleanup protocols weren't being followed. We came across multiple examples where residents were like, oh yeah, they were supposed to clean right here, but they didn't touch it. Or, oh yeah, they just kind of spread a little bit of soil over this area. We also heard from workers confirming those things, plus additional things like not following dust control protocols, dumping contaminated water back into homes. And so those things, I think, are the kind of human factors for why we found such high levels of lead so frequently out in these properties, right? There's what Jane described earlier of commercial properties like the rail yards that are in our communities that hold a lot of lead right at the surface. So whenever there's a major wind event, we might be getting recontaminated, right? But then there was also these human factors that are into it. And so, one of the big calls for our communities that were participating in this was for DTSC to go out and resample DTSC at some point requested the information of the homes from us, and something that we reaffirmed was that it's not just about the homes that we sampled, it's about resampling all of the homes so that we can really tell what's gone on, right? We don't want to just go and clean, the limited amount that we were able to sample with our limited resources, but we really want to understand what's going out here. And so when we had the conversation about what would be appropriate for resampling homes, the academic experts who are part of the ETAG shared that 10% of homes. If you can resample 10% of the homes, that is kind of a valid number to start to tell us what is happening in our communities, right? And so I think very early on the conversations with DTSC were not going well, to be honest, but over time that the number they were willing to commit to increased, and it's not at 10%. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, right now we don't have any data, right? That's a whole other conversation. But that is part of the goal, and then that data is what's going to tell us what we need to be doing next, right? Yeah.
And one final thing I add for some of you, right, this isn't really new information. So we had community meetings sort of about halfway through the study, which has been several years now, to share back with the community as well as all of the participants what their soil lead levels were. We met with a lot of public officials and DTSC as well at that time. It's sort of coming back into the conversation because these results were published in a kind of scientific journal. And if you go through a couple, there's a QR code if folks want to read all the details behind it. But this, information has been out there, and we're kind of bringing it up again because this is sort of our finalized analysis of all the samples. So, thank you.
If I could share one final thing, and I shared this when I was at the Board of Environmental Safety a couple weeks back, but when the results were collected and the report was put out, we did have a meeting with DTSC at Jill's office, actually. And it didn't include what was the term you used, Stephen? Upper management, or what was the? I forget what the term was. Executives. It didn't include Katie and Than, but it included other folks who are no longer at DTSC and some folks who are still at DTSC, who frankly were very disrespectful. I was shocked at the level of disrespect, I think, and so I just want to publicly acknowledge that, publicly thank you, Jill, for absorbing that, reflecting that, doing whatever you needed to do, but really proving that the research was legitimate, and it's important for our communities to understand what's going on. Yeah, thank you. Sorry. So we will communicate out through DTSC when we want to do a specific session on this, so we can go more in depth and get into the weeds on stuff and answer questions.
Well, thank you again, Mark, and thank you, Dr. Jill Johnston. We wanted to open it up so we can take clarifying questions or comments. Again, please remember that you will be given 2 minutes to allow everyone an opportunity to speak. Again, we wanted to open up to our ETAG members first, in case that they have any questions or comments with the information presented.
Yes, Pedro, we have a hand raised from Rania. Okay. Rania, go ahead and unmute and ask your question. She's an ETAG member.
Hi. Thank you, Dr. Johnston, for your work and the presentation. What came to mind when you were describing that the XRF was measuring, the upper few inches of the soil, makes me think of exactly what Jill was talking about a lot earlier at the meeting, which is about recontamination. She talked about suspended particles or lead, and I wanted to add to what she was saying, that what Jane was saying is that we were so worried all these years about water running off from neighboring yards into a yard that's been cleaned up, which is why we pushed so much for a block by block cleanup rather than home by home, and the pushback was severe, and which is why we're all worried about the verification results and so on. And so, Jill, does any of what you've done kind of point the finger to the fact that there might be recontamination? And just to highlight, anytime water runs off the surface, it runs on, neighboring properties. And I've heard the argument, it doesn't rain much in LA. I would like to add, when it rains, it floods in LA. And that's even worse. Water goes everywhere, not even to the neighbors' yards. So, Jill, do you have anything to say about that in terms of the result?
Yeah, thank you, Rania. I think with our work, we can't distinguish what the exact source is for the lead. We're measuring total lead in the soil. We didn't measure the drip zone because that can be influenced by lead paint. It can also be influenced by rain and other things, but tried to get sort of samples of where people were using and playing their yard in the front and the back. And so I think it brings up a lot of really important questions to understand why we continue to see a lot of lead in these homes that should be cleaned up. And sort of we're hoping that, by sharing this information, we can work together to help better understand kind of what's happening and how to sort of prevent it moving forward.
Yeah. I think that's the questions being asked by community was, has there been recontamination? Is there still high levels of lead out there with homes that have been cleaned up? And are there high levels of lead beyond the current cleanup area? And so I think what we see through our research is yes, but as Jill said, there's a lot more questions that need to be answered. And I think there's folks beyond us who need to play a role in gathering the data and answering those questions.
Can I just say, we've got to come up with a plan for the commercial area, because the vast majority of the lead that came out of the smelter, we don't have a plan to clean that up yet. So, this is not a holistic approach to a lead cleanup. And in Omaha, which is the next largest cleanup, which is not nearly as costly as this one, but larger area, they're having to go back now, right, because of resuspension. So I was just reading a big article about that, right? So, it's very frustrating that Dr. Wells, who Mr. Allman works for, did his PhD thesis on the fate and transport of metals. This is not something we don't know. We know that resuspension is a huge problem. We know that patchwork cleanup like we're doing, we're going to get resuspension. How bad is it going to be? We don't know. But when I see 25% of track out I'm just like, that's how you get resuspension, is with track out, right? That's why the South Coast has a rule on track out. These are all things that we all know, and we just cannot get it together. And I apologize, you live right across the street, right? And the ETAG has been saying, I've lost track of time. My daughter turned 40 years old today. Okay, I know my granddaughter was not born. She is turning 11 this weekend when I started working on Exide, right? So, we have been here for a very long time saying these same things, and it is a source of great frustration. Some of these young women in here were, you were toddlers when we first started working on this project. And, now we have women that are going to start their own families. We're going to have the next generation of kids exposed to lead needlessly, not because there's a lack of money, because we just don't have it together. So enough on my high horse about that.
No, we appreciate everyone's dialogue. For the sake of time, I believe we have one hand online.
Yes, we have a hand raised from Rafael Yanis. Please unmute your line and ask your question.
Hi, everyone. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. It's good to see all the ETAG members. We all go way back. So my question and comments are, first off, I'm hopeful that the US EPA will list this site as a Superfund site. And, to Chip, please keep in mind that the remediation was only done to the slab. All the below ground, below the slab, ground contamination is still present. All of the various boring logs that you'll find in the closure report in the appendices shows the all boring logs and sampling of the soil down pretty far to the perched water level. Groundwater level will indicate presence of lead, some in higher concentrations, same with the various arsenic and to a lesser extent the benzene that was emitted. In addition to the below slab level remediation that's needed on the site, I hope that the EPA would also include the various communities, as you can hear from the 1 mile radius PIA that's already been implemented and under cleanup. The previous presentation that you just heard clearly shows very high levels of lead outside the PIA. So we're looking for the EPA to really fund the entire cleanup effort, not only of the site itself and the immediate, but also the surrounding communities. And then you have water companies that are 100% well water, or vast majority of well water, that's actually sucking in a lot of this lead contamination and only reporting back not only their highly contaminated lead, but their average across the entire system. So we don't really see that publicly when it comes to their public water report. So please keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Raphael.
Alrighty, folks. We want to thank again everyone for your questions, comments, and input. We now are going to continue with the rest of our agenda as we are nearing our 8 o'clock hour. Next slide, please. We again want to thank our meeting presenters and our Spanish translators for their interpretation services this evening. Thank you, ETAG members who joined us this evening, and again to the presenters. Next slide, please. We will now hand it to our ETAG co-chairs, Mark Lopez and Director Butler, to share their closing remarks. Mark?
I feel like this was a good meeting. I feel like it was a good meeting because we were able to reestablish a lot of things that have been said before, asked before, demanded before. But I especially think it was a good meeting because we have young folks here and young folks who are using their voice, young folks who are getting active, and that's important, right? Like Jane mentioned, this isn't a short fight. This is something that's going to be going for a while, and so it's really going to take more young folks getting active and involved to continue making sure that our communities are getting the things that we need, which is a full cleanup. Anything short of that is unacceptable, right? And so I appreciate that. I think our DTSC folks here, these meetings are not always easy, and I think, I try to do my best not to trip, and I like I mentioned at the BES, I don't know that y'all have ever seen me trip. Maybe one time there was like a COVID virtual meeting, actually. I remembered after, I was like, Mehdi was saying some stuff, and I was like, no! But I think I like I mentioned at the BES, my goal is always to make sure that we're making progress on cleaning up our communities, right? And I can get up here and I'll ride my bike to de-stress, right? I'm not going to do that here because I want to make sure that we're keeping the conversation forward, that we're trying to make sure to like not make y'all too defensive, because we've seen that be the block that prevents progress on this cleanup. I want you to make sure that you're looking at us as partners, even when we disagree, even when we call you on BS, even when we recall inaccuracies from the past. All of that is to get us to find the next solution. That's what it always is, right? And so I just want to thank those who are able to absorb that and move forward, and encourage those who maybe need a little more help with that. But again, everyone who came out tonight, keep coming. Those who are here virtually, keep coming, because we got a long way to go, but we're getting there.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate your words. Thank you to everyone who came tonight. Thank you to our staff who are intently listening to all the comments and taking them to heart. I especially appreciate the youth coming out, bringing awareness outside the PIA and how important that is for us to look at, and has been, right, for some time. And we all know that lead moving in the environment doesn't follow polygons that are drawn on a map, right? And so we do need to take a very serious look at that in the commercial areas. I'm glad that was raised as well. But just, hearing Jill and Mark talk about the study again at the end here really underscored for me the importance of us looking at the dust in the summer months that was talked about earlier today. Continuing the diligence every day with the work crews that is required to get this cleanup right, and have that feedback loop from the third-party monitor at every morning tailgate meeting to reinforce the safe practices. As far as evaluating, the approach that didn't go block by block, we are committed. I'm going to run through a list of things we committed here tonight that we'll follow through on. We committed to share the preliminary aggregate data with the ETAG working group as it's available. We're going to get the first 70 property reports out as soon as we finish translation, which is a matter of weeks, not months. And we'll find a groove every month that can be anticipated and expected, and continue that open communication with you all and the working group so we know what those expectations are. I agree, another year is too long, so we're going to do everything we can to cut down how long it takes to get this data out, because I do understand how important it is. I think that summed up the big items. We will continue again to hear your concerns and do everything we can to respond to them. So thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you both. Thank you, Mark Lopez. Thank you, Director Butler. Alrighty. Well, once again, we want to thank the City of Commerce for their continued support and for hosting our meeting this evening. We want to thank the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health for providing resources during our meeting. And we want to thank, of course, every one of you for joining us this evening in person, via phone, and via Zoom. This will conclude our Exide ETAG public hybrid meeting for the evening. The online meeting will remain open for an additional 2 minutes to allow participants to copy information from the chat. Everyone, please get home safe and have a great rest of your evening. Thank you.